what he's talking about when he says all you need to do is simply say yes or no? Anything beyond this, it comes from the evil one?
I think that's a different. So this text is dealing with two different things, but I want to. Allie has an interesting comment here that we should tackle quick.
Sometimes it feels like law enforcement, when having to deliver consequences, is treated like they are retaliating. Sorry, excuse me.
Well, and that's what law enforcement is there for.
Yeah.
They're in society to protect, to serve, but they're also there to take care of us, and there's a consequence for someone who's doing something wrong. And so whether it's being pulled over for speeding or robbing someone, whatever the case may be, that's what law enforcement is doing. But society does see it sometimes as a retaliation, unfortunately.
I also think it's no coincidence that it's Romans 12 that I just mentioned, where Paul says, God says that he will take vengeance, he will repay. The very next section of scripture is Romans 13, where Paul lays out the role of the government. And he says that the government is God's agent to bring punishment on the wrongdoer. So law enforcement is actually serving God's purpose of bringing that justice. So rather than law enforcement being a form of retaliation, law enforcement is part of God's plan for how do we deal with those?
Yeah.
How does he deal with those people? So I think it's a different thing than personal retaliation.
Yep.
It's professional consequence, and I think there's a fair place to say we need law enforcement to bring justice and order to society.
And I think you make a great point. Historically speaking, you go back to Exodus 21, and that's where Moses had first referenced, hey, how do you use this? And think of the framework in which God gave the law. This is how the court system is supposed to look. And I think Brandon brings up a great point there in Romans 13. This is the government's way of curbing society, right? Does the punishment fit the crime? And when we think about it in that regard, leaving that up to the court system, leaving that up to the legal system is one of the ways in which God curbs society from wrongdoing.